What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another video. In today's video, we are back with another breakdown video for the Detroit Lions. And today, we are taking a deeper look at Lions' newest wide receiver, Donovan Peoples-Jones. So let's get it started. Welcome everybody to the video. Glad you guys are here. And yes, man, we are back with another breakdown type of video. I'm very excited for this. This won't be as detailed as maybe some of the draft videos that we do, where we go through the stats, some of the advanced stats and all of those things. This isn't like that. Instead, it's more so just what I've seen from watching the player, taking notes, and I'm going to show some clips as we go through this video. But this is an expansion on what we did essentially when we initially traded for Donovan Peoples-Jones. And I had a few things that I thought from watching the player just a very little bit recently. This was an opportunity for me to go back over the last couple of seasons, really do a deep dive into this player and just watching him and taking down some notes and then kind of grading it out through my chart that I utilize for the draft, things like that. But with all that being said, man, I'm pumped up for this. I'm going to try to keep it a little bit shorter by not involving maybe some of the little stats and things like that, but instead getting right to the clips. Now, before we get to that part of the video, I want to make a couple of, I don't know if I want to call these announcements, but just a couple notes that I want to throw out there if you guys want to check these out. First off, every Wednesday on the NFC North round table, that's right, probably what the heck is that? Well, if you don't know, every Wednesday night, usually 6:15 p.m. Eastern time, somewhere around that time frame. I'll be posting the links in the community tab every week. We have the exact time, but it's probably going to be that time for the most part going forward. We have an NFC North roundtable with me as the Lions representative, and then also Packers, Vikings, Bears. So it's awesome. This is something that we've, I think, maybe done a few times in the past with different members, but this is something that's going to be consistent throughout the season. So if you guys want to tune in every week, we're going to talk about past games, upcoming games, maybe talk some trash. There's going to be a lot going on. The first episode is up now. It was a live stream. It was kind of like, okay, we're all meeting everybody. We're getting this thing started, but I wanted to make sure y'all were in the loop. So going forward, Wednesday night, if you want to tune in, you can. Link will be in the community. Make sure you're up to date with the community tab, because there's also a very important thing that I want to mention here. So we have a Discord. Now, so a lot of you probably know this. A lot of you probably know this if you've been around for a little while, but it's something that I really kind of just got off of for a while. I kind of forgot about it. I'll be honest. I kind of forgot about the whole Discord, but I got to give a shout out to the members that are in the Discord, because they've stuck around. They've been holding it down, and that thing is still ongoing, and it's free to join. You can just click the link and you can join into the Discord, and all basically it is it gets you into a chat with pretty much all Lions fans. Okay, so if you want to go chat about the Lions, there's always activity going on every single day. I'm seeing people chatting, so tons of different channels on there. It's free to join, as I touched on. So if you just want to join like a Lions, you know, like if you're on Twitter, for example, right, and you have a post and then everybody's commenting on it, okay, this is kind of like that, but you can just join as yourself, and it's just like a live chat box all the time with a whole bunch of Lions fans, probably a lot of people that are watching these different types of videos on YouTube. So if you want to join, I'm trying to bring it back to life, and I want to give a shout out to those guys for holding it down, everybody that's been in the Discord so far. So again, Discord is live. I'll put the link in the top of this description. It's also going to be in the community tab as well from a few days ago. So those are the two announcements that I wanted to make before we get into this video. But now let's get into this video. We know that he's a big receiver, 6'2", 200 plus pounds, coming out of college listed at 212. He was a round 6 pick by the Cleveland Browns. He's only 24 years old. And as we talked about on Halloween when the Lions made this trade, he gave up a 6th round pick in 2025, which works out really well because that was part of the trade package that was going to take place for Denzel Mims. We also were, I believe, going to get a 7th round pick in return, so it would have been a late round pick swap, but it ended up not happening because Denzel Mims did not make the final 53-man roster. So the Lions kept that 6th round pick, and now ultimately they've traded away to the Cleveland Browns to get a player who's on the last year of his contract in Donovan Peoples-Jones for the remainder of the season, so that he can help us out now, maybe add a different element to this offense, which I really think that he can, especially after rewatching, but then also potentially be part of the future as a young receiver that's put a lot of good on the field, but really this season hasn't had the same opportunities. Certain games you'll watch, and at the quarterback position, they just haven't had consistency. So there's certain games where they only throw screens, and there's just not enough passes to go around. And other times, it's also what they have in that receiving core with Amari Cooper, who's been healthy, and really with everything that they built around there. And you'll see guys like Moore taking a lot of the snaps. So for him, he hasn't just been involved this season, and that's why his numbers are so low. But in the past, the year before, over 800 yards receiving, and then of course the year before that, over 500 yards receiving, which is usually where our outside receivers kind of land if we think about the guys that have gotten the majority of the snaps over the last couple of seasons. Josh Reynolds, Reynolds, DJ Chark, like those guys usually land somewhere kind of in that realm within our offense. So again, I don't really necessarily think he's going to do that, not in half a season for sure, but that's usually the kind of production that we're getting out of that position. We just need a certain style that fits what we do offensively. And what I love about this from watching the player is, one, I think he brings us some different aspects to his game, but at the same time, there's a lot of things that maybe I overlooked when we initially made the trade because, maybe the little bit that I've watched or what I have heard about the player. There's certain things that I think I may have overlooked, and I think this guy's got a real shot to be around for the future, potentially get an extension, because the Lions right now, only players on the outside that are under contract after the season are Jamison Williams and Antoine Green. So with that being said, let's dive right into it. I got to start off with the hands, okay? It all starts there. It starts off with the ability to catch the football. Now, if we're looking at this statistically, if you want to go through Pro Football Reference, in his 4-year career, 3.5 years really, he's only had 6 total drops in his career. Now, he hasn't been, the most productive receiver in the NFL, but there's been enough there. He doesn't drop many passes. So when you watch him, it's something that you absolutely love, and you consider what we have at the outside receiver position. You can start right there with reliability. Now, he does it in his own kind of unique way. It reminds me a lot of Marvin Jones Jr., specifically with a lot of the, kind of using his body on some of the pass catches, and when he adjusts his body, not necessarily putting his hands outside of his frame, but instead just kind of adjusting his body to the football and doing it all kind of in one motion. Very similar to a guy like Marvin Jones. Now, that's not necessarily a bad thing. It can be a bad thing in certain situations if you let the ball get to your body, but if you're a consistent pass catcher, then it's just kind of his style of doing it. But there can be some knocks with it, but for the most part, I gave him a good grade in terms of his pass catching, or specifically his hands, and I'll go through some of the notes that I have here on this. First thing is easy body adjustments. It's a big part of his game, and it's, again, kind of like Marvin Jones Jr. in a sense. I think there's real flexibility, fluidity into the upper body, and you'll see the body adjustments that he can make. Now, I think a lot of this pulls back from ball tracking. I think he's an excellent ball tracker down the field. I wasn't expecting this, and it's the way that he kind of proactively sets himself up to catch the football is what stands out. The pacing very early in a route, the late hands, so he kind of doesn't give a tell to the cornerback. Instead, he kind of lets it just drop into the bucket, but he positions himself very well, and you'll see him change up the pace, speed up to get in a position where he can make the play, kind of align himself with the football. Very proactive in that sense, where he's able to make it all kind of one motion, but instead the ball tracking ability is what stands out. And you'll see it specifically. It's easy to notice on like back shoulder fade pass catches that he has, but it's even like the underneath routes. It's even the zone hole hitters where you notice some of the ball tracking ability. I think it's one of the best aspects of his game. The sideline awareness and sideline ability, really. I mean, you talk about the awareness of where's the sideline, can I get 2 feet down? But this is also some of the real athleticism, right? I think a lot of times we say athleticism, you're thinking just pure speed. Okay, and he has good speed. He has good top end speed, 4.48 40 coming out of Michigan. But when you watch his athleticism on the sideline, that's where you start to go like, whoa, that's pretty impressive. And the thing that I love about this is it's not just a couple flash examples. You go back to his rookie seasons and find plays like this. The toe tapping on the sideline, the awareness, not falling out of bounds, making clutch grabs, not falling out of the back of the end zone, being able to utilize some of his route strength to not get pushed and bullied out of the play. And also at times use that against cornerbacks that try to squeeze him to the sideline. Use that against him. We'll talk about ready hands here in a second, but the toe tapping ability, the toe drag swag, as the people say.
What?
I talk about hands. I also want to throw in the usage of his hands when he's not catching the football, meaning getting off the line of scrimmage, working through the stem of the route, keeping himself clean. Now, I do think at the line of scrimmage, you'll see some inconsistencies in terms of anticipation when the jam is coming from a cornerback, and at times it feels like he's kind of thrown off and just not expecting it, and his hands feel late. But at the same time, I think ultimately, you consistently find a guy with ready hands, and especially through the stem of the route, and they're trying to maybe place some sort of leverage, whether that's inside or outside. I want to jump in here and talk a little bit about our partnership for this season with BetUS, a leading online betting platform offering a wide range of sports betting and casino games, from the most popular sports, basketball, baseball, of course, football, that's the time right now, all the way to esports. Well known for their security, reliability, and customer service, which I had a great experience with firsthand, them reaching out to me because they didn't want me to miss out on a deal once I signed up. And it's very easy to sign up. Use that top link in the description. You deposit at least $100. You can get a 125% match. You click that link. It'll take you to a page where you click Bet Now, and in 3 pages, you can be signed up with BetUS. There's also tons of different ways to bet with BetUS. Outside of casino games, if you want to go the sportsbook route, you can go to pregame betting, whether that's over-unders, spreads. You can utilize prop bets, which we do shorts on now every week. Some of the game props that I like for each upcoming Lions game, all the way to live betting and parlays, which are just a ton of fun, just to see what kind of crazy idea you can come up with. Features in there which I really like for example, the props builder, where you can build out a prop with a specific player. Maybe you think Khalif Raymond's going to have a big day. You can build out a player prop for that player, whether that's receptions or yards, maybe it's touchdowns. Still have tons of different ongoing promotions available right now, whether you're a new customer or you're a existing customer that's just re-upping with BetUS. There's tons of different promotions that are available right now. My favorite parts of BetUS is their loyalty program. If you place wagers on BetUS, you can work your way up tiers on BetUS, earning different rewards such as bigger bonuses or welcome free play or free payouts, and utilize that top link in the description. I know a lot of you guys already bet during the NFL season, so if you want to follow along with the shorts that I make and maybe some of the bets that I like for the week, click that top link, sign up with BetUS. At very least, you don't even need to deposit money right away. You can just look around, just see what's kind of out there, just take a look at the website, but it's definitely worth doing, especially if you're already betting. Again, if you have any questions like customer service issues, they have an FAQ on their website that you can go to, or you can get into contact with them utilizing live chat, email, and phone support. So again, shout out to BetUS for supporting this channel, our partner for the NFL season, and let's get back to the video. That's the biggest thing. Occasionally you'll get some hit and miss, I think, in anticipation of when the jam is coming his direction. It'll kind of stymie him for like an initial second, but one part of his frame that just stands out is it's very difficult to affect the guy off the line of scrimmage or utilizing some of those jams looks where even if you get a clean hit on him, he does a pretty nice job of staying balanced. I think it's one of the better parts of his game as well, is the balance that he showcases off the press release. But when that anticipation specifically is on point, you'll see some of the body control, the fluidity there, the agility to kind of avoid some of those, while at the same time consistent, ready hands as he's working through the stem of the route. And I think that's where it pops up the most. You'll see kind of the subtle, utilizing his hands to push off at the top of the route or onto the catch point. And actually, we're going to talk about this more in a second, but it's a really big part of his game because for me, he doesn't have big time stacking ability on cornerbacks. It falls back a lot more to nuance and leaning into his play style, which is the more physical brand. And you'll see multiple occasions where he'll get a step on a cornerback and he'll start to dial back. That way he can lean into that quarterback to separate and utilize some of the size that he has to create separation through the top of the route. So a little bit off topic there. And I would also throw onto the pass catching ability, I would also throw the scoop pass catching technique. Probably my favorite part of him as a pass catcher is when he has to go down for a pass and he doesn't become reliant on utilizing his body. He does a lot naturally within his pass catching technique, but it's not something that he relies upon when passes are low, when they're close to the turf. He's able to scoop down and catch it with his hands, and he doesn't need his body to be involved on some of those catches. The biggest knocks they have there is occasionally you'll get him a little bit too late with his hands, getting his hands out late, utilizing late hands, and passes will go by him. Also, underneath routes specifically, you'll get some like easy drops in there, and this has been something that's been noted as well, easy drops, and to me, sometimes being just a little bit late, and it's also, again, kind of utilizing his body, really good body adjustments that are behind him, kind of reacting to it, but at the same time, you can get some of those body adjustments, which leads to him not coming up with the football, because he'll kind of put his body into it instead of just snagging it with his hands that's behind him. He'll kind of put his whole frame into it. Knock that I would have here is, again, that he can kind of let the ball into his body, and where that shows up is underneath. When it shows up underneath is when a guy is very well contested, like on a slant route, and they can get their hands in, disrupt the pass catching technique, or you'll see him bobble it a little bit, maybe on a deeper pass downfield where it'll kind of hit his chest and it'll kind of rattle with it a little bit. And because of that, to me, his pass catching technique can ultimately hinder, I think, some of his run after catch ability. But overall, very reliable pass catcher, and he's got some beautiful grabs, and his contested catch ability, the strength that he plays with, as well as the body positioning, it makes him a real red zone target. Okay, now I don't know if he's the guy Lions are going to say, let's just throw fades to him if we get a one-on-one, but it is something that I think immediately when I look at this receiver room, and I think you could throw tight ends into this, you could throw running backs into this if you want, I think he's immediately arguably the best red zone threat that we have in the sense of incontested situation. Now we have a guy like Josh Reynolds, for example, that can be very successful in these spots because of his route pacing and his setup. And you'll see that kind of here with Donovan Peoples-Jones, the way he slow plays this, kind of gets the cornerback to sit down inside when he peeks his head inside, and then he's able to break back outside. Notice the contact balance doesn't get pushed out of the back of the end zone. Then, of course, the ability to go up, take it out of the air through contact,
and finish.
I think immediately he puts himself into that category for us because of the strength and also kind of the toe tapping ability, the sideline awareness, and the tracking of it all. I think for him, he immediately puts himself into that conversation as he's the best on the team.
This is kind of like the example we were talking about earlier about his hand usage here on the sideline. A couple things. First off, cornerback playing a little bit of inside leverage. They have the single high safety trying to squeeze him to the sideline. And notice here he's going to go the 1-2, stab inside. Look at his shoulders. He kind of leans with it. Then as he breaks back outside, notice the ability to immediately get into and open up his strides. That makes him a threat. And then, of course, on the sideline, as the cornerback tries to squeeze him off, he has those ready hands to swipe, and then he's able to get the step on top because of that. And then, of course, the finish is just beautiful. The tracking, the footwork inbounds, everything's beautiful.
Occasionally, even though he hasn't been a touchdown machine in the NFL, that can be something that the Lions here and there could attempt to utilize if they get into those spots going forward and if they're still struggling with red zone looks, but usually he's been against zone coverage. Discipline has probably that, and another thing I'll touch on. Discipline is one of the things I'm most impressed by with this receiver because it never seems to kind of drop off. The only area where I see it drop off is when he gets a step on a cornerback and he'll kind of still roll into his route and he allows guys back into the play without really sticking to some of the savvy or trying to really shake them when they're in a trail position. He'll let defenders too often back into the play from a trail spot. But the route discipline as a whole is one of the most consistent aspects of his game. From the release to the stem up towards the catch point, the route discipline is awesome.
Here's a similar example to the last one. Cornerback sits inside leverage on this play, and then watch the release. He's going to slow play and walk him up vertically to try to close space. Then when he opens up that stride, he pushes upfield, but then back outside. That forces the cornerback to try to get into some contact here to slow him down, and that's when he can utilize that physical presence to work the sideline, create the step, and get a step on the cornerback on this play.
And what I mean by that is the shoulders and the eyes. All right, those two things tied together to really sell looks while also do it in a balanced fashion. So I'll start with him off the press because this is an area where I think I gave him some knocks when we initially traded for him, and I don't think that he's elite at the line of scrimmage specifically against the press release, but he's pretty darn good. And I would tell you what, he's probably improved a lot since college. And why is that? First off, balance. I think it's the biggest strength for him off the line of scrimmage. He plays with really good balance. It's difficult to throw him off. Even if you get a clean stab on him at the line of scrimmage, you might be able to force him to hesitate, maybe throw off timing, but ultimately you're not going to really throw him off his release. He plays with really good balance, and where he ties that together is when he takes the stabs or the jabs or the single step release, whatever kind of release he's trying to go into. He plays with such good balance and also the discipline to utilize his eyes and utilize his shoulders to really sell, and consistently he jars open leveraged corners. And what I like about him is he seems to kind of play into a style that you would think about with a running back, you think about maybe with a basketball player. He plays into the style as a route runner of let me get half that man, right? If he's sitting inside leverage, my route's going towards the inside, so I'm outside of him. I need to get to the inside. Just let me get half the man, and then I can play through that route with my physicality. Not getting flagged because I'm shoving him all over the place, but just being able to get through half the man and play because of my frame through the receiver. Strength probably wouldn't be some of the short area quickness within his footwork, but it's more so the way that he's built. So I love it. I love the discipline that he shows at the line of scrimmage. It allows him to jar open some leverage cornerbacks, and then he can work through half the man and have success like that and really set it up into the top of the route. But these kind of go together. But against zone coverage, for example, some of the good, some of the bad here. So one of my knocks was I felt like occasionally he would kind of just run through zone holes, and you could understand what he was looking at with the linebackers, but he would pull himself a little bit too far through zone holes, kind of trying to time himself up with the quarterback, and he'd run himself into a second level of coverage. Speaking of that, what you like is when he starts to work into that second level, and this is something that Josh Reynolds, we've pointed out before, he does well as well, is the awareness. The awareness when playing behind linebackers.
Like this to me was a little savvy but disciplined route. Here they're going to drop into cover 3. So against this slot, he's going to work outside. That way the inside route can try to pull that off-ball linebacker so he can create his own hole to sit down in. But you notice at the top of his route, he still sells an outside head fake to me to hold that outside slot cornerback that he already had went by. Because of that, the cornerback can't dive fast enough, and it still holds enough of a window for the ball to come through to open up this route.
Baltimore, where you'll see him kind of slightly fade towards the outside, and then once he gets behind the line, linebacker, his ability to snap back underneath, get right behind a linebacker. And it's really just that ability to find those zone holes behind linebackers when you're running a lot of those dig routes that we like to put our outside receivers on. When you talk about zone coverage, it's kind of open because so many teams play zone. They play so many different versions of it. But for example, if he's giving like a half turn look by the cornerback, maybe that's a cover 3 look, for example. It could be really anything. But if he's getting like a half turn look from a cornerback, one thing that I like is, again, playing into his strengths. He'll kind of slow play it. He'll kind of slow play the route. That way the cornerback doesn't necessarily know when to bite. And we actually looked at an example against Cincinnati of this, and I think there's even more examples that start popping up when you watch him slow playing the route. That way when he breaks it down, the cornerback can't anticipate when he's going to settle down into his route. Again, that comes back to the discipline within his route. Now for him, where he kind of lacks here a little bit to me, is he doesn't have some of that threatening vertical ability. Where he does a nice job of getting over top, to me, is his ability to very quickly open up strides. And you'll see this off the press as well, especially if the cornerback maybe whiffs on the player, is able to get a quick win with his hands. His ability to very quickly get into a stride creates immediate separation. It can immediately create a step on a cornerback. Now, like I said, I think he allows guys in trail back into coverage too often, but that's where you can immediately get you with the step. However, if a quarterback's in half turn or kind of playing off on the play, he doesn't seem to bring some of that vertical presence where a cornerback starts to get overly too much depth, or he's able to really push into the blind spot and really scare them off to open up and turn and run, where he's able to sit himself back down. I didn't see a ton of examples of him being able to do that to cornerbacks. Instead, most cornerbacks were able to play a little bit more of a patient style. So for him, instead of trying to threaten that way, I thought his best aspect was being able to threaten as I'm going to slow play this, kind of walk it down, and then also playing into his strengths. He has an ability to maintain speed while also lifting shoulders. So you'll see it when he's impending, when a route break is coming, his shoulders will kind of lift, right? And that can be a tell for a cornerback. But for him, he does a couple things. First thing, he's able to maintain a lot of speed, okay? We talked about kind of the long strides. He can implement those long strides into impending route breaks or working back to the football. So that last step can really force a cornerback to open it up or shift on the play, and he's able to break down and get back to the ball. So there's that aspect of it, of he's able to still maintain speed while his shoulders may lift up on the play. Then, one of the aspects that I really think, I wouldn't say overlooked, I just maybe wasn't as aware of, is the body control. I think this is one of the bigger strengths of his game that I did not expect to be saying. And, you probably get a sense that this is going to be the case when you start to look at some of the, sideline pass catches that he makes. You're like, yeah, his body control is probably something different. But as a route runner, his ability to sink at the top of the route. Now, we talk about this a lot, and it's a little bit different from it for him because he kind of plays into it a little bit because you'll see his shoulders rise. But like we talked about with some of the speed out routes, right, where he can kind of shorten up his footwork to get out on those out routes and create that separation between him and the corner. That way when he dives, he can shorten up the outbreaking route and he's not rolling through and the cornerback can dive on the pass. So he's able to create and maintain separation.
Now, this is a little bit different as an in-breaking route versus an off-coverage corner, but the cornerback's playing inside leverage, so like this, where the cornerback is not dropping to get depth and he's sitting patiently inside, he's going to rise his pads, slow play to the top of the route, and then it's that jab outside where he sells his shoulders, his eyes, and his ability to quickly and with the fluidity to break back inside without really pushing far upfield and flatlining, that we can create that space as a wide receiver.
But just like that, seeking at the top of the route, you'll see some of the athleticism in terms of the fluidity of body control to sink, slam his weight down from the upper body down to his knees, and really limit the gather steps that it takes to work back to the football. And to me, he's able to play into that. So even when his shoulders rise, he can kind of play into that and slow play the route or continue to work that way. But then because also he's able to stay with that high pad level and drop it as well as he can kind of lean into it and get back and create separation to the football. Now, specifically speaking at the top of his route, I think there's a lot of things to like here. The biggest thing with me, and it's kind of the overarching theme, I think, of this player, is the physical presence that he brings. And the reason that I say that is because, not because like he's just huge so he just runs into people. He's not that, but he plays into his strength. So like I talked about playing half the man, and also at the top of the route, impending breaks where he's able to kind of sit himself down, slow himself down, work himself into cornerbacks to separate. You'll see it on linebackers as well. Shows up a ton in goal line situations, shows up in dig routes, specifically against man coverage. He plays into that. And to me, that physical presence is huge because, one, it can be difficult to throw him off his routes. So especially, like I said, as he's working through the stem, if he keeps himself clean with his hands, I think he lacks some juice when you see some of the instant bursts, specifically out of some of the deeper route breaks. Maybe if that's a whip route, for example, I think he really lacks some burst out of some of those routes, especially where there's a little bit more complexity to it, rather than just working kind of a vertical route like a post or a fade route, right? When he's able to really sink down and work out of it, I think there's a real lack of kind of burst out of some of those routes. He can get into it and sink down, so it works for like a deep curl, but getting out of it, you don't see some of that quickness or the speed to really separate when he gets out of his break.
So again, these are the types of routes that he has a lot of success on, like this dig route here, where he's working up vertically, but he pushes outside on the cornerback with some of that discipline, and then it's the 1-2 ability to break back inside, really limit those gather steps while opening it up with some speed to create space.
It's a threatening strides that he has, whether that's creating an instant stack basically on the play on the cornerback and getting on top of the route, or it's the strides at the top of the route, kind of that last jab that he can take. And really all of this to me comes back to the body control that he has. He plays with so much body control that I did not anticipate as a route runner. And you'll see it, for example, if he's working, say, a zone hold. Maybe he's working a crossing route. There's linebackers on the play dropping in his zone coverage. His ability to avoid contact. Also, with the discipline aspect, we talked about kind of like head fakes, things like that. But how about depth? How about the depth discipline? And really, to me, this shows up, and you'll see it. He's consistently hitting his marks. He's consistently getting the depth of the first down marker. I saw that often. He'll also kind of give me some of the, you think about Sam Laporta, where even in man coverage, but he knows they're setting up a pick play where he'll kind of slow himself as he's working open on the play to just find that window for the quarterback to throw the ball into. I think it can be a little bit hit and miss zone coverage, shallow routes, but in man coverage, you'll see even some of that nuance to kind of slow himself down, still making himself open to the quarterback, not just running through the route. I think he lacks really some acceleration and electricity when you talk about some of the bursts, specifically when he's also trying to push vertically. And this is where you'll see the occasions of a cornerback, if they are able to stick with him off of press alignment, they're able to kind of stick in his hip and they can really kind of close off the route, really any separation that gets created. It's the speed at which he can get into his strides, and you'll see it off the press. The ability to stay with balance, but to also sell his routes and then immediately open it up. There's not some of that, instant acceleration. It's a little bit more gradual. So it's like, okay, the immediate stride might give me a step, but that'll give me a step to maybe put the ball out there and not necessarily to continue to stack and separate from a defender. I don't really see that aspect. There's a lot more nuance that goes to it for him to create separation.
And a coverage like two-man is difficult to run against regardless because a cornerback can just play underneath the route. But this is where you'll start to see it show up or against press. Some of the lack of suddenness or quick twitch, short area acceleration or burst to create that kind of separation when they can play underneath this route or also trying to just run away from the defender.
Last category, the key category for me would be what he does with the ball in his hands. And I think a lot of this does get limited because of his pass catching style. As I said, similarly to a guy like Marvin Jones Jr., didn't think he brought a lot of table after the catch. Some of that is route tree, right? If I'm throwing back shoulder fades, you're not going to do anything after the catch, likely. But at the same time, also some of that is the way that he catches the football. So I think those kind of go hand in hand. The route tree that he runs versus also the pass catching technique can really limit what he does after the catch. However, there are still opportunities at times where you could see more. Like, for example, when you catch some of those spot routes over the middle of the field, zone coverage, and you'll see guys like St. Brown or maybe Khalif, but really St. Brown, where he's able to quickly knife upfield, pick up a couple of extra yards. Not to say that he doesn't go upfield like he tries to bubble things, because he does it, but he often goes down to his knees. He often goes down all the way, and he doesn't try to scoop and keep running. He instead kind of goes down with the catch and just makes sure he's a little bit more of a possession receiver in that sense, where he doesn't consistently, I think, take everything that's there after the catch. He can leave a lot of things, I think, a lot of the meat on the bone, unless it's a route brings out some of the run after catch ability, because if he's in space like a zone hole and he's able to turn and really get upfield, he does have some real ability with the ball in his hands. He's got a punt returner background going multiple years now, over 60 punt return attempts. He's also been a kick returner, but there's real talent with the ball in his hands. You see the physicality, the strength to kind of run through guys, push for extra yards, the leaping ability. He'll jump over players. I had multiple examples seeing that. Like, there's talent in that sense. He's a very good athlete. So with the pass catching, I think some of the catch to run transitions just aren't as smooth as you would like to see for that to be the case, right? It's not as instant as catch it and then I'm taking off. It's a little bit more like catch, gather, and then I can go. So if he's in an open area, yes, he can create after the catch, but it's not naturally something where I think he's going to be electric there once the ball gets in his hands, unless it's set up for him to be electric and he gets out in space and he's really already running.
Also didn't notice a lot of shiftiness in his game or make you miss ability. It was more so the explosiveness and straight line speed and power and leaping.
And then he can do something with the ball in his hands, like leap over a guy, for example. But I don't think that's going to be his calling card. I don't think that is his calling card. But a punt's different. You can catch it, then he could take off. Or a kick return, catch it and take off. It's a little bit different than having the catch, turn around and transition and take off. If he's rolling through the route like a dig route, you can see him do some things after the catch. And what I like there as well, to the last point that I made about route route running is very quarterback friendly in that sense. So we talked about kind of playing into his physical presence, and I think there's a lot of ways to do that. One example would be when he's running an over route, right? If he's running a crossing route, instead of trying to run away from a cornerback because that's not his strength, he may lean into that cornerback to then create separation, or he'll start to pull himself back to the quarterback, start to roll his route back down. That way he can create that space and make himself an easier target to the quarterback. You'll see things like that. He doesn't try to lean into his straight line speed as much as he does setting up those open windows for the quarterback. Look at Donovan Peoples-Jones, and I was kind of like noting a lot of the things. Some of the things that surprised me a little bit. Body control, not as a pass catcher, but also as a route runner. I think he's good to great in that category. That was something I ended up getting a way higher grade than I thought. Contested pass catching, I don't think he's maybe elite here, but I think he's one of the better ones that we're going to have on our team immediately. And I would say his red zone presence, I think immediately is arguably the best that could be on the team automatically with what he can do in some of those contested situations. He doesn't play the game with some of the speed that you would expect. It's a little bit more of nuance driven. I think when you watch Peoples-Jones kind of leaning into the way that he plays, you don't see a burner, I think, when you watch him, but you'll see an ability to get vertically. When he's able to run some of the more vertically pushed routes, you'll see especially a lot of that body control and fluidity. I love the way that he kind of stabs in and out of some of his breaks, and also, again, some of the way that he sets up some of his routes as he's working downfield. But man, that guy can fly through, bam, slamming it here, and then coming back here, maintaining striding out of those breaks, working vertically. Now, when it's a hard cut and he's got to really sit himself down and work back inside, you don't get as much of that striding out of breaks. But again, it's a little bit more of what route is he being asked to run there than anything. I think the ability to get off the line was a little bit better than I anticipated. He's a big-time clutch playmaker. He's been that with Cleveland in the past as well. He obviously can block, as we talked about. I'm not going to say he's the best blocking receiver ever. I don't think that he is, but he can block, and they utilized him a lot this year for that alone. His slot alignments, his outside alignments, there's a lot of versatility that goes within that. He's also gets utilized in a ton of motion, so I think it speaks to some of the football intelligence that he brings to the table. And ball tracking, maybe my favorite aspect of his game is his ability to align himself with the football, specifically into the second and the third level. Overall, yeah, he gives us punt returning ability. It's probably still going to be Khalif when healthy. He's averaged 7.9 yards per punt return throughout his career in 61 attempts. To put that into perspective, Khalif averages 10 per punt return, and in 2022, all-pro punt returner, 13.2 yards. But on his career, he's averaging 10. So overall, he's not, to me, going to take over that role. He could give you a versatility if you need him to, or kick return as well. He could step into that role if he's not getting snaps as he would like on offense early. But ultimately, I think for us, it's a different styled receiver, but it's also a guy that I think because of that, it can be really caught up that he's what he's not. But I think there's a lot of things that he brings. Marvin Jones Jr., you're getting some real nuance there for a very young player, and I think for me, it's a great addition to this team, and it could be someone that we keep around for a little while, just based on how we've addressed that outside receiver position in the past. And if she shows us some things and he's healthy, this guy could absolutely stick around with the Lions. So I'm excited to see him.
As always, I want to give a shout out to BetUS for partnering with us, not only for today, but also for this NFL season. Use that top link in the description. Deposit at least $100. You can get a 125% deposit match. Now, I do got to say, maybe you saw that Chargers line. Chargers currently favored by 1 point as of me making this video. I would check that out. If you're confident Lions are going to hold it down coming off a bye week, that's something to look at. What I love doing are the props that we do each week: passing yards, rushing yards, touchdowns, interceptions, building out a parlay ticket. That way, it makes the game so enjoyable, and you can just build out crazy odds. So that's something that I would also check out. But yes, want to give a shout out to BetUS. Click that top link. If you're already doing sports betting, you might as well do it this way. So if you want to support this channel, make sure you click that top link in the description and go check it out. Even if you don't want to deposit money right away and put it into their little bank, it's at least worth signing up, creating an account, and just seeing what they have to offer. So with that, thank you for watching, and I'm out.